Welcome back to Building and Breaking, where we talk about how brands are built, trust is broken, and what salon owners, hairstylists, creatives, and pro beauty brands can learn. I'm your host, Nina Kovner, and this week we're talking about Rihanna or Rihanna, depending on how you pronounce it, not just as an artist or founder, but as a personal brand that has changed industries and markets and built something so much bigger than herself. Because a personal brand is not just about a person, it's about leadership, clarity, and showing up consistently for the people you serve, very much like a business brand. And in today's world, where people tend to trust people more than companies, your personal brand might be your biggest advantage. And this is coming from someone, me, who has done just about everything in my power not to build a personal brand. In fact, when I created Passion Squared, my entire goal was to stay behind the scenes. And I mean, behind the scenes. Why? Well, we don't have enough time on this episode to talk about that. I will maybe talk about that at some time. However, over the last year or so, I have come to the conclusion that building a personal brand is not an option for me as long as I'm going to stay in business, right? And I am actually transitioning my company brand, Passion Squared, into a personal brand. It just feels like the right time. And while it will take a lot of work because Passion Squared's been around 13 and a half years, I know that it's the right thing to do and I'm going to do it. So I'm going to take you along the ride with me. That's not what this episode's about. So let's get into it. So first, let's talk about really personal brand versus business brand. So both personal and business brands are about who you serve. Your brand is not about you. It's about who you serve. However, a personal brand is built around a person and a business brand is built around a company. So, but the similarities are, I mean, are everywhere. And when we get into brand story framework, I'm going to illustrate Rihanna's personal brand and contrast that with Fenty Beauty and Savage Fenty. So we're going to get into that. So Rihanna's personal brand has always centered around representation, confidence, bold self-expression, and challenging the norms. And if you really look back at the first time maybe you heard her music, I'm not going to sing. Oh, I want to sing Umbrella so bad right now. Okay, but I'm not going to. Um, you've picked up on that's kind of who she's always been. And her business brands like Fenty Beauty and Savage Fenty reflect a very similar promise, but they deliver it in a huge way. So your personal brand, it's not a marketing tactic. It's just like a business brand. It is a compass. It is a GPS. It sets the tone. And so let's get into the brand story framework that I use. Actually, I did Rihanna and Fenty um, in the Creating Your Awesome Brand course in Module 1. I have different brand story outlines for brands that you may know. And so this one I already had because I already did it because I think it's such a great example of how personal brand and business brand kind of intersect, but they are not the same. So let's look at Rihanna, the personal brand. Brand purpose. What problems are you solving? Lack of representation in mainstream culture, beauty, and the struggle many face with self esteem and authenticity and confidence. Brand promise. How do you solve those problems? Celebrating self expression, creating a sense of belonging, empowering people to feel themselves, to feel beautiful. She's always been very unapologetically authentic. Brand people Who do you solve problems for? Folks that feel underrepresented in all categories, race, gender, identity, and those who are really craving authenticity and inclusion. And then brand products and services, how do you help solve the problems of your people? Obviously, it started with music. But if you take a big step back, and this is true with any brand, if you take a big step back, Rihanna was about so much more than music. I mean, her fashion was always, again, authentic, bold, challenging the norms, right? So you can look at music, fashion, now skincare, all of that. Now let's look at Fenty. Whether it's Fenty Beauty or Savage Fenty. So, what problems are you solving? The beauty and fashion industries were not serving all people. They were not inclusive, especially people of color, diverse body types, and non-traditional identities. Now, again, we see more and more inclusion every day in beauty and fashion, but it was not always that way. And you may remember when when Fenty Beauty launched, their shade range of foundations was revolutionary. And they've really set the tone for that. And that was a problem. Tone for that, no pun intended. That was a huge problem, is a lack of representation in broad shade ranges in makeup. And the same can be said for bodies, right? When it comes to fashion. So how do they solve those problems? Representation in action. Everything they do is action. It's not an empty mission statement on a wall. It's not performative. It's diverse. It's inclusive. It's high performing. I mean, it's so aligned. Who are they solving problems for? Consumers who have been excluded or underserved in traditional fashion and beauty. And again, we cannot deny that's happening. It literally has happened my entire life. And then solutions. How do you help solve the problems of your people? Makeup, skincare, lingerie, fashion, etc. So Rihanna's personal brand absolutely is a huge part of her business brand, but they are different, right? Same but different. Same but different. And it's not, you know, particularly in the salon industry, as we see a continued rise of independent, quote unquote, independent stylists. And we have a lot of discussion around quote unquote branding. I will just remind everyone who's listening, brand and branding are not the same. Brand is the story, the foundation, the promises, all of that. Branding is the identity, logos, fonts, colors, aesthetic, images, branding. Okay, that's really important. It's still not about the people, right? About you as an individual, personal brand. However, a person is the brand. So Rihanna Rihanna's personal brand is about solving a real problem. And then the business brands that she's built around that execute on that. I've talked a couple times in a few of the episodes about the importance of personal brand in building a business brand. Now, it's not, you can't not, you can build a business brand without a personal brand, but in 2025, it's becoming a lot more difficult. It's not impossible. Of course, it's been done a million times. However, as I kind of said at the beginning of this episode, people are trusting people way more than they're trusting companies. So Rihanna is a great example of leveraging her personal brand to build a business, right? Of course, she came out with beauty. It wasn't really a surprise. Someone that is so fashion oriented, trendsetter, all of that. Same with skin, same with fashion. So it's just almost like a natural evolution for her. And is that's possible. That's so possible. Now there's some companies that start with a business brand and then build a personal brand behind it. So let's look at that. I have talked about Red Lobster's CEO. I am doing an episode of Red Lobster. It's coming up. We also talked about Elf and Elf in the Elf episode, but here's what we didn't talk about. Okay, so what we did talk about is the importance of leadership as personal brand, right? And how impactful and powerful that is. And we talked a little bit about how the Red Lobster CEO really began rebuilding trust, not through performative bullshit, but through visibility and showing up on TikTok. He's still showing up on TikTok. Um, Communicating directly to the audience with a clear human approach. Human, not performative, not written in a boardroom, not a script written in a boardroom. That's a personal brand at work. Whether he intentionally meant to do that, I know he did. Obviously, that was strategic. But that's a great example. Another one is, while I did not talk about this in the Elf episode recently, Elf's chief marketing officer and chief financial officer of Elf Beauty, the whole entire company, joined one of Elf's Twitch streams. Now, talk about connecting. Talk about taking it to the people, connecting through a personal brand. That is very unusual, but it's becoming more it's been very unusual, but it is becoming more common that you would have these major executives show up live on Elf's Twitch channel, chit-chatting with their community. This is what I'm talking about. The power of a personal brand to build your business brand. And while we didn't talk about it on the Alpha episode, Twitch and Roblox and a lot of those kind of Gen Z, Gen Alpha platforms are a huge part of Elf strategy, which I think is important. Complete side note. I think that's really important because traditional marketing has a place, right? Whether it's offline communications, obviously delivering awesome experience consistently aligned with your brand, but email, text, referrals, word of mouth, all that. None of that goes away. However, there continues to be such a huge focus on stuff like Instagram for salons. And I've said this a trillion times. That is not it. Instagram is good. So is Facebook. So is whatever. So is Google Business. But it's not everything. And we have to remember that. We have to remember that. So these personal brands, when they show up on behalf of their business brands, whether it's Fenty Beauty, Red Lobster, Elf Cosmetics, they are building emotional connections. They are building emotional connections, and they are aligning with who they serve. They don't just say they care, they show up. Rihanna built trust long before launching a product, right? Long before launching a product. So we're not talking about traditional hierarchy. We're not talking about hype. We're talking about how we show up, how we set the tone. And it always comes back to clarity of brand story. Because your brand is not about what you do. It's about who you serve. It's about the experience you create and deliver, how you make people feel, and how you create solutions to help solve their problems. Because Rihanna started in music. Like we could just say, oh yeah, she's a musician. She's a singer. but she doesn't even make music anymore. I mean, it's not music. And I know that's like a big joke. Like, Rihanna, are you ever going to make music? I mean, probably not. I mean, her Super Bowl performance was next level because your brand is not about you. It's not about what you do. It's not about the haircuts. It's not about the hair colors. It's not about that. It's about something so much deeper. And ultimately, it's about that connection. It's about that trust. And that's what builds high lifetime client and customer value. The amount of happiness, joy, referrals, and revenue that client or customer brings you over the lifetime of your relationship. Talk about high lifetime customer value. I mean, Rihanna laid that foundation a long, long time ago. Now, if Fenty had been a shitty line, that, we could have a different discussion, but that's not the case. They have built trust every step of the way. Every step of the way. But that foundation was laid a long time ago. So you don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to be a rock star. I mean, you are a rock star, but I mean, like singer. You don't. I can't sing. Uh, so it's not about celebrity. It's not about that. It's about clarity. It's about being clear on who we serve, how we serve. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. Whether you are performing in front of millions of people at the Super Bowl or you are serving your clients at your single chair salon, the fundamentals don't change. The fundamentals don't change. And no glitzy, shiny ad campaign or boosted social post or clickbait content can change that. We're talking about the long term. We're talking about that higher lifetime customer value. Rihanna did that. And it all started with her personal brand. Now, I was reading somewhere, I don't know, it was kind of clickbaity. It may have been on Threads or LinkedIn or who knows. But I was reading something about somebody saying, like, fuck personal brands. You don't need to be that. Just be yourself. And it's like, yeah, we always want to be ourselves. But that is that absolute black and white thinking that is not helpful. And in fact, creates a lot of confusion for people. Just because we're creating a clear brand story does not make us inflexible and inhuman. It actually makes us more human, I believe, because we have more clarity around who we're serving, how we're serving, and the problems we're solving. So we're focused. It's not performative, it's not edited, it's not inauthentic at all. Of course, we want to be ourselves. But in the context of a personal brand, just like a business brand, we focus. We have something to focus on. We have a foundation. Because one of the misconceptions with personal brands, and I've dealt with this ever since I started Passion Squared, because of course, back in 2012, Passion Squared was all built around the power of social and digital. Yet in 2012, not a lot of people believed in the power of social and digital. Um, I'm I'm not bitter still over that, but it was lonely. But one of the things that used to come up often with some like social media experts is, and this has went on for a long time. I wonder if it still is. Maybe I would see people post, nobody wants to see your breakfast on Instagram. And it's like, whoa, hold up. Hold up. That's not that's not true because your content is your marketing, right? And your marketing is driven by your brand story. So if part of your brand story, it could be a business brand or personal brand, it doesn't matter. If part of the brand story is health and wellness, then yeah, I do want to fucking see what you have for breakfast. I'd much rather see what you have for breakfast instead of another fucking balayage because it's human, because it's connecting, because it's emotional. Your content is your marketing. Your content is your marketing. So when we talk in the context of personal brands, people sometimes are like, "Oh, well, I don't want to share my whole life." That's not what it is because it's not about you. Remember, personal brands and business brands are not about us, they're about who we serve. So, regardless, we are still curating content and solutions, whether it's products or services, that help solve the problems of our people. That's not exposing our entire personal life on the internet. That's TMI. And we all have a different level of TMI depending on our brand, personal or business. So it's still curated, it's still strategic, but it's still also authentic and real. And I hope you hear that, you listener, especially if you've been one of those people. It's so common, so you're not alone here. One of those people that's like, I don't want to share my life online. And I'm here to tell you great news. You don't have to. Does Rihanna share her entire life online? We talked about this actually a little bit in the Taylor Swift episode. We talked about healthy boundaries, what healthy boundaries look like online, as an example. That's an example of healthy boundaries and clarity of personal brand story. Your content is your marketing. So you get to share whatever is of value to those you serve. Not everything. Not everything. Rihanna, do we know everything about Rihanna? She just shows up like she just shows up. So I want you to think about that. Rihanna didn't build a personal brand for attention. Like it's not, and again, such a great example of it's not about us, it's about who we serve. She built something to serve people who felt left out, and then built businesses that followed. So, regardless of where you sit in whatever industry you're in, really, really looking at your personal brand, it is an opportunity to lead. It is an opportunity to show up and say, hey, there's a human behind this business. Not through ego, not through look at me, but through empathy, through relatability. And not everywhere, just really being in alignment. Really being in alignment. I want you to think about that. Your personal brand and your business brand work together to create deeper connections and to build trust because people trust people. I know it's hard with so much performativeness on the internet. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. But we are craving connection. We are craving authenticity. We are craving relatability. And having clarity around our personal brand can help us create experiences, create content, and create service solutions and product solutions that really, really, really speak to who we wish to serve. Yeah. So, personal brand, business brand. And Rihanna is such a great, great example of that intersection. Thank you so much for listening. And I know I say this every episode, but I really, really mean it. Thank you for your DMs. I'm loving the DMs. I'm loving the DMs. And I'm so happy that you are enjoying these episodes. You're learning. You're learning. And that, I mean, that's what I'm here to do. That's what I've always been here to do, empower the people that I love. Everything that Passion Squared has ever done, that A School has ever done, empowering the people that I love. And I have something new coming up in the fall. And that will be also about empowering the people that I love. I'll talk more about Mentored with Nina L. Kovner as the month progresses. But all I can say is I am not fucking done yet. And it is only because of your trust, support, and love. Whether you have been a client of Passion Squared, you've been part of the A School program for the last 11 and a half years, or been part of the larger Passion Squared community, it is only because of you that I'm able to do this work and create these episodes and content and programs and show up for you every day. And yes, I am going to work really hard building my personal brand. Uh, that's a commitment. That's a commitment to me and to you. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. If you have any business besties that you think can find value in these episodes, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with them. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could drop a rating or review, that helps these episodes become more discoverable to the people they can serve. And I mean, that's why we're here. So thank you so much for listening. I am so grateful for you. And we'll be back next week. Have a peaceful day. Bye.